So as I started out by saying, we are in the beginning of our Lenten series, Love in a Divided World, and our sub-theme for this morning is Why Love? But I am going to retitle it. It is the prerogative of the preacher. I didn't have that title earlier in the week when I was asked about it, but I think it might be better to call these passages something about what does love look like. If we're going to talk about love during Lent, we need to know what does it look like. And so we have this example in Hosea that I first read of parental love. And I would actually argue more specifically even maternal love. The people of Israel are compared to a child who has turned away from their parent. They have rebelled, they aren't listening. We know that happens, right? And God is described, I would say, almost as a parent of a toddler. And some of these lines in here, that's why I want to make the argument of being described like a mother, because in verse 4, it talks about picking the child up, holding the child to the cheek, bending down and feeding them. Fathers, I know you do that too. But in this time when this was written, in this society, that was definitely more women's work than men's work. So God, as mother, love like a mother's love. Now, parenting is one of, if not the toughest jobs in the world, in my opinion. And if you're not a parent, please indulge me for a while and listen. And I think you at least, maybe from observing parents, you know how it can be a struggle sometimes. And if you're not yet a parent and you are a child, we all are children of somebody, we know about this special and unique bond between parents and children. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, but there is a unique bond. There can be high highs as a parent, and there can be low lows. There are joys and agony. Those of you that are parents, I want you to think back for a minute about the very first time you became a parent. Or about each time, if you have more than one child, about each time you experienced the birth of a child. What was that like? Do you remember those feelings? I think back to when my girls were born, and I had this experience even amidst all the drugs and chaos and everything that was going on, of this overwhelming love that I had never experienced before, that I don't think I even knew was possible to feel. That it started when I was pregnant. Even before they were born, I started feeling very protective. I tried to do the best I could to have a healthy pregnancy, to have healthy babies. You start dreaming for your kids. This is what makes miscarriage and infertility so hard, because those dreams start even before kids are born, sometimes even before they are conceived. And so this love starts as a seed and it grows, and there's this deep, profound love, at least in the best of circumstances. But I don't want to over-romanticize this love, right? Because parenting is hard work. And it's easy to love when things are going well. That's true in any relationship, right? But when things get hard, it's a lot harder. Right out of the gate, parents learn this. When you have newborn babies that are crying throughout the night and you're sleep deprived, and yet somehow you have to get yourself up again and again, hour after hour. Those immediate feelings of love for your newborn get tested. And then as your kids grow, boy, you hit the teenage years, oof, you're tested even in other ways, right? It's easy to love when things are going well, but it's harder to love when things are challenging. And the best parents, they want what is best for their kids. They want to teach them the right ways, and they will always love their kids no matter what. But we can't control our children, and sometimes they take paths that we parents disagree with, or that we struggle to watch. As parents, it's a constant process of learning how to let go and let your children grow up, and even let them face difficult life lessons. And I have sat, sadly, many times with parents in my office who are grieving about what is going on with their children. Children that have gotten into trouble, addiction, trouble with the law, rebellion, something like that. And there is hurt and pain. And sometimes when I hear a news story about some terrible crime or someone going to jail, even here at the Candiota County Jail, I remind myself those people too are someone's children. And there is probably grief over them, but hopefully still love. And even when children grow up, become adults, parents don't stop worrying about them. I came across a news story this week of a mother in Indianapolis, and she was pleading to the cameras, the news cameras, if anyone has any information about my son, please call this number. Her son was 31 years old and had been hospitalized and had gotten up and walked out of the hospital in December in nothing but a hospital robe. And no one knew where he had gone to. And the mother's heart was aching. Now, sometimes human love falls short. And these relationships that we have between parent and child, they are strained, they are difficult, and it doesn't always feel like there is a wealth of unconditional love in those relationships. But even God acknowledges this. In this reading of Hosea in verse 9, where God is talking about God's strong love, it says, "For I am God and not a mere human being." And so God acknowledges that God's love is different, that God's love is stronger and more powerful than a mere human being's. But I want us to think about this love because in the best example of parental and child love, this gives us an inkling of God's love for us. It gives us an inkling of how strong and fierce and protective God's love for us is. And in the ways that parents don't give up on their children, God never gives up on us, never abandons us. The situation here in the story of Hosea is that the people of Israel have been rebellious again. This is the history and the story of the Old Testament. And God's heart is aching. God is angry and God is hurt. They refuse to return to me. They insist on turning away from me. But God says, "How can I give you up, Israel? How can I abandon you? Could I ever destroy you?" In the midst of this hurt and this ache, God refuses to abandon them, refuses to stop loving them. It doesn't mean they aren't living with consequences of their actions. In fact, this reference to Assyria means this foreign invader is coming to take over. God can't protect them from every bad thing. Just as parents sometimes have to let your children make those decisions you know won't be so good, but they have to learn for themselves. It doesn't mean that God isn't hurt or disappointed, but God won't abandon the people of Israel, and God won't destroy them. This is counter to our way of thinking, isn't it? We struggle to keep that unconditional love going. We struggle to hang with people if they've disappointed us over and over and over. And it's pretty common these days to hear stuff or see stuff put up on social media about getting toxic people out of your lives. And maybe there is some benefit to that. But you won't see God posting on God's Facebook page, "I'm getting the toxic people out of my life." God says, "My heart won't let me do it. My love for you is too strong." And if we don't believe it here in Hosea, again in Romans, we hear, "Nothing shall separate us from the love of God." Nothing, nothing. Not politics, not religion, not socioeconomic status, not intelligence, not aptitude, not occupation, not our good behavior, not our bad behavior, nothing. And if nothing separates us from the love of God, it means no one is separated from the love of God. So, if you happen to be sitting here this morning feeling God is distant, that you're wondering where God is, because that happens, especially in tough times. I want you to know nothing separates you. Even if you go wandering the other way, God is still there. God is there for you. If you have any doubt, God loves you. Even when you feel unlovable, even if you feel you don't deserve it, even if you feel no one else does, God loves you. And so as we start out on our journey in Lent, love in a divided world, let us think about this love. Let us live in this love, this fierce, protective, faithful love of God. I think this might just be what the world needs. As we're fighting and grumbling and fearful and hateful and whatever else is all going on, we need to be reminded that there is something that won't let us go, that holds us together. A love that doesn't give up, a love that doesn't abandon or cut off, a love that won't walk away. A love that keeps loving even when it's hard to love. A love that loves even when things aren't going well. So let this be for us. Live in this joy and this hope. But then let this love be power and motivation. How can we, in our even imperfect, mere human being ways, love each other like this? So let us go and love each other in a divided world. God isn't giving up on us. We can do this. There is hope. Thanks be to God.